With the draft and the trade deadline in the rearview mirror, it's time for our midseason re-rank of the Mariners farm system. Today we go over prospects 30 through 16. Colby, hit it.
You are Locked On Mariners, your daily Seattle Mariners podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Ahoy, sailors. It is Thursday, August 24th, 2023. This is Ty Gonzalez and Colby Patnett for the Locked On Mariners podcast, brought to you by Bunches. Download the Bunches app today, and when you do, our friends over at Bunches have featured the Locked On MLB Bunch in the Discover tab. You can also click the link in the description to join the Locked On MLB Bunch community today. Thank you so much for making us your first listen. Subscribe, like, and turn on alerts if you're watching on YouTube, or subscribe and leave a 5-star review on your preferred podcast platform if you like what you hear. And if you're part of the crew and rock with us every single day, let us know in the comments below. And if you want to hear from us even more, please consider signing up for our Patreon. You can now get a free 7-day trial to check out the show. The link, as well as our social accounts, is in the description of this episode. Mariners have an off day today, so we figured there'd be no better time to do our mid-season re-rank of the Mariners farm system. The draft and the deadline are both behind us. The Mariners have added a ton of new prospects within the last month. Colby and I have compiled two separate top 30 lists. We have combined those two for one master list by using a point system based on where we ranked each player. Today we'll be doing prospects 30 through 16. Tomorrow will be 15 through 1. And before we hop into the rankings, as always, this is just for fun. We are not scouts, but this is how we would rank the Mariners prospects based on what we've read and what we've seen. We're not really privy to much information that isn't out there for the general public, but Colby and I have been doing our own prospect ranks for the last few years. You guys seem to like it, and we enjoy doing it. So let's get into them. Here are prospects 30 through 23 to begin. At number 30, we have Ashton Izzy. I ranked Ashton Izzy 29th. Colby did not have him ranked. Right-handed pitcher who threw in the Complex League, drafted last year by the Mariners, 19 years old. And we're going to say this about quite a few of these guys, but Izzy is probably a reliever when it's all said and done. If you're a pitcher on the back half of this list, that's probably the most likely outcome for you if you make it to the bigs. But it's a fastball slider mix for Izzy. He didn't have a good first year in pro ball statistically, 8.35 ERA, only over 18 innings though. The slider is solid, but the story here is the fastball, which is already flirting with the high 90s at 19 years old. So if the velocity continues to tick up and he can get more value out of the slider, I think there's the bones of a high leverage reliever here, but a lot of work to be done. Colby, do you have any thoughts on Izzy? I know you didn't rank him, but I know that you do like him a little.
Yeah. Izzy, basically every pitcher is more likely to be a reliever than a starter, with the exception of like the George Kirby's and like the Logan Gilberts, like guys who just have insanely high floors. Even Brian Wu was more likely to be a reliever than a starter for pretty much his entire career. So it still might be, probably not, but still might be. Izzy is a really interesting guy. He's very young. There's plenty of time for him to climb these ranks, and I suspect he will. He's a very talented arm. And like we always say, anytime the Mariners bring you an arm, you have to be interested because they're pretty darn good at this.
Yeah, absolutely. Coming in at number 29 is Gene Munoz. Colby, you ranked him 28th. I didn't have him ranked. Right-handed pitcher who also threw in the Complex League, 20 years old. What do you think about Gene Munoz?
Yeah, like you said, 20 years old, right-handed pitcher. Definitely a reliever here. 6'1". His listed weight is about $155. Not really buying that right now, but he is, a slight guy. But yeah, Complex League this year, it's actually his first year stateside. What I like is the walks have gone down every year in his career. He throws plenty of strikes. It's not command, it's control over command, like most relievers. 13.5 K per 9 so far in the Complex League this year. 20 years old. I don't think he's going to get moved up to Modesto. He probably starts next year in Modesto. It's a good fastball. It's a good breaking ball, and it's good stuff with an improving ability to throw strikes. He's a decent athlete. So I think Munoz, there's some I don't want to say there's high leverage potential here. There might be. You never know when guys pop, but I think there's a pretty solid floor here as a major leaguer, assuming that the the command and control continues to develop and he continues to put on some better weight. I just think it's an exciting arm. It's a guy to watch, and the numbers are pretty eye popping. And this is a guy who could, in theory, once he gets to, I mean, the complex league is organized ball, but A ball, double A, all that. I think he can move pretty quickly.
Affiliate ball, I guess.
Sure. Yeah. I think he can move pretty quickly. So I think Munoz is a guy who could be in the big leagues in 2 years as kind of a mid reliever.
Coming in here at number 28 is Spencer Packard. He was 29 on our list back during the off season. You ranked him 29th. I ranked him 28th. Outfielder who is currently having a pretty good year down in Double A. He's going to turn 26 in a couple of months, but again, he's having a hell of a year swinging the bat. 301, 397, 472 with 13 home runs, while striking out just 15.8% of the time and walking 12.1% of the time. Nice lefty swing that looks like it can play a little bit at the major league level, but that's about all he has to offer. Not a good defender, even in a corner, not a particularly good runner either. He has to hit, and he has to carry over that plate discipline he's shown in the minors as well. His path to success as a major leaguer, to me, is mostly going to be by walking and hitting a lot of singles and doubles. So
I think he's got some over the fence power, but yeah, it's mostly gap to gap power. I don't think the power profile is enough to be an everyday first baseman, which is kind of where he kind of has to play, because it's not going to happen for him in the outfield. And again, he is 25. He'll turn 26 at the end of the season. So yeah, for a 25-year-old who, if he was 22 and he was doing this at Double A, we'd be considering the bat special. And you just find a place to play him, but he's not. He's 25. I think that he needs to be promoted to AAA now. Give him a month in the PCL, see what he can do. He's Rule 5 eligible this year. I don't think that's going to be an issue. I don't think they're going to add him or anything like that. But the numbers are the numbers, and he walks almost as much as he strikes out. He's got 13 homers this year. The on-base skills look legitimate. There's a guy who can hit a little bit. Can he hit enough to be a major leaguer, a major league bench guy? Because that's what's going to have to carry him. It's not going to be the speed. It's not going to be the defense. Can he hit? He's got to hit like 270, 280 to be a big leaguer. Can he do it? I don't know. I like what he's done the last 2 years. I do believe that he can hit for some average and pretty good gap power. But I think he's got to be more than that to be a big leaguer. And because of that, and because of his age, that's why he didn't move up the list. Yeah. But he did stay steady, and that's saying something, considering the Mariners added some real significant talent in the last year.
Another guy that didn't really move up the list for us, he ranked 26th during the offseason for us. He ranks 27th here. Zach DeLoach, another lefty hitting outfielder who's having a decent year in AAA. He's 25 years old now. Yeah, again, like I said, he's had a solid year in Tacoma, and he's probably ready for a taste of the bigs right now, but his profile overall hasn't really changed. Colby, what do you think?
Yeah, he's, he runs pretty well, but he's not a burner. He plays pretty good defense, but he's not a premier glove, even in a corner. He can play center field if you need him to, but you really don't want him to. He's got some power, but it's not plus power. He's just kind of a fourth outfield type, honestly. But the big concern for me, and this has kind of been recently, striking out a lot this year. Almost 30% strikeout rate. That's pretty significant. Again, you like that there's some power, 18 home runs. It is the PCL, so, but there's gap to gap power there. There is a pretty good athlete. And it's not terrible defense. It's not terrible base running. It's not like he can't help you in these other places, but 29% strikeout rate in AAA. Now we've seen Marlowe have a high strikeout rate and then come up and look like he never strikes out. So maybe that's DeLoach here, but again, he's 24. 25. He just turned 25 last week. It's a little old to be a prospect, but he's a good athlete. He can fake it in center field if you need him to. He's fine in a corner. He's got some bat speed. He's got some pop. He draws walks. It's the strikeout. If he was striking out 22% of the time, I think there's a good chance he'd be in the big leagues right now. But I see a fourth outfielder. I think he's a less athletic Cade Marlowe with a little bit less pop, and it's valuable. Like if DeLoach was added to the major league roster today,
right,
like nobody would be like, I don't know what they're. You'd be like, okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, if they went DeLoach over Mike Ford, I'd get it.
Yeah,
I wouldn't be like a massive fan of it, but I get it. At least DeLoach can give you some value in the field.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, and still maintains that lefty bat and might be able to draw a walk, because right now Mike Ford is pretty much home run or walk for you.
He's 3 true outcome guy.
Yeah, so I mean, DeLoach doesn't obviously have that power upside, but if he can get on base a little bit here, I don't know, maybe
run a little bit.
Yeah, I'd keep an eye on him, maybe just as a dark horse for the September call-ups, at least before Kelnick comes back up, but we'll see. All right, we got more prospects coming up for you here in just a moment, but first, a reminder: this episode of the Locked On Mariners podcast is brought to you by Bunches. Bunches is a new app built just for sports fans where you can chat sports in real time. Click the link in the description to join the app, or go to the Apple App Store. Download Bunches now. I'm telling you, you're going to love the conversations with other Locked On sports fans. Chat about your team every day. Download the Bunches app today, and when you do, our friends at Bunches have featured the Locked On MLB Bunch in the Discover tab. You can also click the link in the description to join the Locked On MLB Bunch community today. And you're listening to the Locked On Mariners podcast. Thank you again for making us your first listen. The Mariners, of course, have an off day today. They get back after it tomorrow night, T-Mobile Park, against the Kansas City Royals. You can catch all the action on the Mariners hometown broadcast with SiriusXM via the SXM app. We are re-ranking the Mariners farm system. We are currently in the prospect range of numbers 30 through 23, and we're going to go to number 26 here, and that's Brody Hopkins, our first 2023 draftee to make the list. Brody Hopkins, right-handed pitcher, drafted in the 6th round by the Mariners this year. You had him ranked 25 in your list, Colby. I had him ranked 26th. This was one of our favorite picks of the Mariners draft this summer. Dude's just an absolute freak of an athlete. He's more than likely going to be a reliever, but there's a much clearer path, to me at least, to a high leverage role than with someone like Izzy, for example. Hopkins is probably going to be triple digits on the sinker when it's all said and done, and the horizontal break on the slider already is gnarly. So if all goes well, again, to me, he could be a souped up version of Kendall Graveman. What do you think?
More like a souped up version of Michael Lorenzen.
Sure.
Like he is that type of athlete. I don't know if you guys remember this, but Lorenzen actually dabbled with being a two-way player. He got some time in the outfield.
Yep.
Hopkins is that good of an athlete. We watched him score by leaping over the catcher during draft season. Like throws 96 to 98 off the mound. Pretty good slider. It's an interesting weapon. I think Seattle really is only planning on using him as a pitcher. But it is nice that there are other ways he can help you. For example, yesterday, right? Mike Ford is the zombie runner at second base because you don't have any other position players. Well, if Brody Hopkins was on your team, even though he's a pitcher,
yeah,
he's fat. Like Hopkins, I think I read like legitimate 65 speed, like on a scouting scale, not for a pitcher, not like just like he's legitimately fast. He's a really good athlete. There's a lot of fun things he does on the mound too. He's a guy that I think they might give a shot to start. But if they just put him in the bullpen, he has the potential to fast track. It's the fastball slider guy, two-seamer, a slider guy that we saw Seattle take over and over and over again. But yeah, I think there's a chance to start here. And I think Michael Lorenzen is actually a pretty good comp, just a really good athlete, strong arm, good stuff, not great stuff. Command, control kind of comes and goes, but I think that there is, I think that you're just kind of banking on the athleticism here and hoping the Mariners can teach him how to pitch. And that's a pretty good bet most of the time. So I'm a fan of Hopkins.
Coming in here at number 25 is Axel Sanchez, the 20-year-old infielder, high A. We had him ranked 9th during the offseason. He had a major fall here. You ranked him 23rd in your list. I ranked him 27th. We were so high on him heading into the season, but he's just had a terrible year. Again, still only 20 years old, but it's hard not to be incredibly disappointed right now with the season that he's had. Colby, where do you stand on Sanchez?
Yeah, he's more likely than not to be outside of my top 30 when we redo these ranks, usually sometime in spring training.
Yeah.
He's just, I think the Mariners may have erred in pushing him, to what Everett. I think they may have rushed him a little bit to that assignment. I think starting him at Modesto was the way to go. But yeah, it's just cratered this year. The swing and miss has gotten exasperated. He's just not a confident guy right now. 29.2% strikeout rate. It was 27 last year, but the walk rate's gone down. He's not barreling up the baseball nearly as much. There's still some, above average power. There's still some raw power. There's still really good, tools here. Like he can play shortstop. That's legitimate. He's pretty good base runner, but there were holes in the swing and there were questions about his game plan at the plate last year when he was putting up good numbers, and now they've continued. He just looks completely overmatched. So, I think it's one of the few miscalculations the Mariners player development has made seemingly this year. But Sanchez, he's probably going to repeat the level next year, and he's got to produce. Like at the end of the day, he has to produce, and he has to get back to what he was, because there is a shot at a major leaguer here, but if you can't turn it around for the rest of this year and you come in to next year, kind of, then you're probably going to find yourself being one of those, low A flame out type of players. And he's got work to do, but good athlete. And it's not impossible that he turns things around.
Yeah. Coming in here at number 24 is right-handed pitcher Darren Bowen, who has made his pro debut this year down in Modesto, 22 years old. Colby, you had him ranked 27th. I have him ranked 21st. Friend of the show, Darren Bowen. He's been on this show. I got to talk to him a little bit a few weeks ago. You should go listen to that interview. Really good kid. I'll say this. I think Bowen can actually start. I've watched him 3 times this year, and I walked away very impressed every time. He's already sitting mid-90s on the 4-seam. He's touching the upper 90s. The slider is solid. He's throwing some really good 2-seams as well. The changeup right now is more of an idea, but I think he can develop that into something more real. There's a lot of swing and miss here. Over 11 Ks per 9 right now in Modesto, though I do have some concerns about the command and control of his pitches. He's 22 years old, so how much more room does he have to grow? But yeah, I think there's some real upside here with Darren Bowen. What do you think?
Yeah, I think the biggest concern with Bowen is pretty obvious. It's a very slight stature. Can he physically stand going, every 5 days going 5, 6, 7 innings? Right. We don't know. We don't know. And like you said, he's 22. There's not a lot of projection left physically. Still some, but he's not going to go from 160 pounds to 210. Like that's just not going to be who he is, and maintain his athleticism. So I think for me, that's a bigger concern. It's a really good slider. It's a really good fastball. So I totally get why you have him where you do. I like him too. He's in my top 30 in a good system, but I have concerns about his ability to start, and it's just I think the fastball slider gave him a really good floor as a middle relief guy, but I do wonder how he is going to hold up physically.
Coming in here at number 23 is Walter Ford, right-handed pitcher who was drafted last year, made his pro debut this year in the Complex League. 18 years old, but he, like Axel Sanchez, is another big faller from our offseason rankings. We had him 7th during the offseason. He is now 23. You had him ranked 24. I had him ranked 23. So we're pretty much in line on that thinking. The vanilla missile just did not really take a step forward in his first year of pro ball. So yeah, what do you think?
Yeah, he's still so young that you don't want to write him off entirely, and I don't think we are, just because he fell pretty far. But yeah, the fastball really hasn't taken leaps forward. That was kind of his calling card, is it was up to 100, touching 100 with the fastball, good run. It's just kind of been an average fastball today. The off-speed stuff really hasn't taken off either. It's just kind of been a stagnant year for Ford. Now it's his first year in pro ball. The numbers themselves aren't terrible. 23 strikeouts and 23 innings, 3.57 ERA, 10 walks. That's a little high. Opponents hitting 284. Like, he's just not had a good year of development. It's like I said, he's 18. I think he just turned 18 like a few months ago. So he's a very young player, and there still is a lot to like about this arm, but it was definitely a step back this year. I don't think there's anybody who would debate otherwise, but Walter Ford took a step back this year. And when you combine that with the amount of talent the Mariners have added in the draft and other things, it's pretty plain to me that he is still a guy worth watching, but he's not a guy that I would necessarily count on as being like the next wave of pitching coming to Seattle. He's at least 4 years away based on what we've seen right now.
Yeah, I would assume that he's going to start the year in Modesto next year, and we'll kind of see what that increase in workload does for him and what he's able to do in the offseason. Because right now, the stuff just needs to take a step forward. It's just not where you would hope it would be a year after getting drafted. All right, so we're going to be doing prospects 22 through 16 in just a moment. First, a reminder, this episode of the Locked On Mariners podcast is brought to you by Sleeper. Want the chance to win more money with less picks? Head on over to Sleeper, where you can win up to 100 times your money on just 2 or more fantasy baseball picks. All you have to do is choose 2 or more players that you like and select more or less on their stats like home runs, strikeouts, hits, and more. Get your picks right and you could win big. Making your picks is easy and takes only 30 seconds or less. And if you win, you can withdraw your payouts safe and quickly. Use promo code LOCKED ON. That's LOCKDON. You'll get up to $100 matched on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Currently operational in over 30 states. Check out Sleeper today. And you're listening to the Locked On Mariners podcast. Thank you again for making us your first listen as we re-rank the Mariners farm system, doing prospects 30 through 16 today. We'll do 15 through 1 tomorrow. And tomorrow you can also catch the Mariners and the Royals on the Mariners hometown broadcast with SiriusXM via the SXM app. All right, let's get back into these prospects here, Colby. Number 22, Ben Williamson, third baseman, drafted out of William and Mary in the second round for the Mariners. He even played a little bit in Modesto, or has been playing a little bit down in Modesto this year. You had him ranked 22nd. I have him ranked 24th in our respective lists. And, he was a money saver in the second round, but I think we're both pretty intrigued by him. What do you like about him, Colby?
Yeah, well, we can start with the fact that he's an above average third baseman, a true third base glove. There's no question about whether or not he can handle that position. He can handle it and then some. So right there, you start with a pretty elevated floor. And then you kind of start looking at a lot of what we got to see in terms of batted ball data in small samples. And he's a guy who, if I'm not mistaken, he played really well in the Cape, which we know the Mariners do value. It's a chance to be an above average hit tool. I think he can get to average power. So that there's a lot to like here. Again, maybe he's more of a, utility type. He actually runs okay, so he might be able to fake it at second base or shortstop if you need him to. But there's a lot to like here. He is a plus defensive third baseman who has already shown a pretty safe and average hit tool. And then it's just going to come down to the power. If he can get to 25 home runs, he is an everyday third baseman. At the next level, he's basically a Eugenio Suarez if he gets to 25 home runs. Now, he has a chance, I think, to hit 260 and get to 25 homers with the defense, which would make him a little bit better than a Eugenio. Long way to go. I mean, he is 22. He'll be 23 next year, so he'll probably start next year in Modesto. Has a chance to get to Everett. And we'll see. We'll see how it looks. Obviously, we don't have a lot of data right now on his performance in Modesto. It hasn't been great by the numbers, but the Mariners care about things like exit velos and all that. So we just don't have access to that. But I do think
the glove
there's a
has
chance
looked good, at least down there. I've seen some clips. Yeah.
Yeah. No, the glove is totally legitimate, and I think he's going to hit. So I think he'll hit Do I think he'll hit enough to be an everyday player? I don't think so. I don't know. That's my guess. I think he could. I wouldn't bank on it though.
Sure.
And if you can't hit enough to be an everyday player, you're probably not going to crack the top 20. So I think Williamson is probably at least going to be a utility type. And I think that carries value. And I think it's a guy who can run a little bit. He can play a really good third. Got some pop. Like, I think it's a solid utility type, at least.
Yeah, I like it. Number 21, Michael Morales, right-handed pitcher who was drafted, 2 years ago? Last year? When was it?
It's last year with Ford and Izzy. He was the third round pick.
Yeah, it was last year. Vanderbilt commit. They were able to rip him away from there. So that's not an easy thing to do either. He's been pitching down in Modesto this year, 21 years old. You had him ranked 20th. I have him ranked 22nd. Morales is more command over stuff, obviously not in the same vein as George Kirby, right? But there's some real projection here, and that works both ways. It probably makes him closer to a surefire bet to start games in the majors at some point, but it also means the ceiling here is relatively low and relatively unexciting. I think he's a number 5 who can look like a number 4 at times. To me, he's another Taylor Dollard, which is fine because if Dollard didn't get hurt this year, he might have been able to provide you with some much needed depth. But if Morales' stuff doesn't get much better than it is right now, he's probably never going to escape this 18 to 24 range in our rankings.
Yeah, he's just a dude. I mean, as much as you guys think I hate Emerson Hancock, his stuff is significantly better than Morales right now.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's just another guy for me. He's a number 5 starter, maybe.
By the way, there's going to be a very shocking development tomorrow with the Emerson Hancock discourse.
Ty has him lower than I do.
That's a tease.
It's a tease and an accurate one. Watch him do the mental gymnastics to get around it. Yeah, no, I think Morales is fine. I think he's pretty firmly a top 30 prospect in the system, but I think he's a major leaguer, but I don't think he's a particularly good major leaguer. I think he's probably just about league average, which again does have value. And plus he just turned 21, 11 days ago. So there is a possibility they send him to gas camp. Maybe the fastball, ticks up a couple, or maybe they get more spin on it, or maybe they can sharpen up the curveball. The changeup's pretty decent already. Maybe they can tweak a few things here and there, and they can max him out at a mid-level number 4 starter. But I do feel like that's his ceiling. So just a low ceiling guy.
Coming in here at number 20, Alberto Rodriguez, the outfielder acquired in the Taiwan Walker trade with the Blue Jays a few years back. He made his way to Double-A this year, 22 years old. He'll be turning 23 soon. 19 in your rankings, Colby, 20 in mine. He was the 30th, the last ranked prospect in our offseason rankings. So he's jumped up a bit. This has been one of the better stories in the Mariners farm system this year. Rodriguez was added to the Mariners 40-man a while back to protect him from the Rule 5. He had a mediocre season last year, got DFA'd, but stayed with the Oregon. It's a good thing he did because it seems like maybe he's figured some stuff out. Again, he'll turn 23 in October, slashing 304, 382, 533 between high A and Double-A this year. Strikeouts have been an issue. It's a pretty limited profile, both offensively and defensively, but definitely a step in the right direction for him this year. What do you think, Colby?
Yeah, the strikeouts are the big issue. He struck out about half as much in Modesto or in Everett. In Arkansas as he did in Everett, but he's also played 1/3 of the games. So he's kind of making that adjustment to the better quality pitching, while still maintaining a pretty good average, but the power is kind of gone. I think you're looking at maybe a 4th outfield type here. He's not a great defender. He's definitely a corner guy, kind of a fringy arm. So he's probably built for left field. And there's some pop here. Certainly there's some bat to ball skill here. Certainly there's some pitch recognition skills. There's some, working counts, CTZ type of things here. So there are a lot of half tools that he has. And it's just a matter of whether or not he can make that leap next year. He'll probably repeat Double-A to start next year. But there's a chance the bat carries him to the big leagues, and he's a fringe average outfielder. He's a 4th outfielder at best. That's his ceiling, I think. But 4th outfielders have value. So I think that, he's got a shot to be a big leaguer here in the next 18 months, but he will have to take steps forward. He's going to have to cut down the strikeouts a little bit, or he's going to have to hit for more over the fence home run power, because, a 30% strikeout rate while you're slugging, 380, 400, that's not going to cut it. So
Yeah.
he's got some work to do, but I think he certainly has raised his stock this year.
Yeah, agreed. Coming in at number 18 or number 19 rather is right-handed pitcher Prelander Berroa, who's down in AA right now, 23 years old. You have him ranked 18th in your list, Colby. I have him ranked 19th. He ranked 16th in our off-season rankings, and I'd say this has been a pretty disappointing year for Berroa because he should be up with the big league club right now, but he's just not throwing enough strikes, and clearly the Mariners just don't trust him enough to the point that they're giving opportunities to the likes of Edward Bizardo and Devin Sweet over him. But there's high leverage stuff here and the potential to give Seattle something they could really use right this second. It's possible we could see him as one of the September call-ups, but are you getting concerned at all about Berroa, Colby?
Not really. It's the strikes. He's thrown more strikes recently, but it's more so the command about like just leaving pitches in the middle of the plate, more so than anything. But the fact that the Mariners don't trust him yet, and we've seen them cycle through Ryder Ryan and go get,
justice for Ryder, by the way.
Sure. They went and they got Bizardo. They went and they got Luke Weaver. Like they've added guys from outside the org instead of going back to him after his one outing. It's a little, eyebrow raising. But I think you just have to trust the Mariners on this. Berroa, we knew he was a reliever coming into the year. That's how we had him ranked. The numbers have been fine. He's certainly, but I don't know if he's gotten better from where he was at the beginning of the year. And I'm not concerned about that, but I do think that the Mariners clearly are because again, Bizardo, Ryan, Weaver, Sweet, like Campbell, like these are all guys that Berroa is better than, like stuff wise, and yet the Mariners won't trust the stuff. It says something about Berroa, I think.
Yeah. Coming in here at number 18 is outfielder Aiden Smith, who was drafted in the 4th round last month. He is one of the 2023 guys that got the call up to Modesto recently. So he's going up there along with Colt Emerson and Ty Pete. So that's exciting. You had him at 21. I have him all the way at 15. I really like the idea of Aiden Smith a lot, and clearly the Mariners do as well after going overslot on him in the 4th round. The reason that I have him ranked so high is mostly because I think the overall upside here is far greater than that of someone like Rodriguez or even Cade Marlowe. Smith is a good athlete with good contact skills. It's probably more doubles than home runs, but he's got the pop to put some balls over the wall. Probably ends up in a corner, but might be able to handle all 3 outfield spots. There's a real shot for him to be an everyday player. And honestly, I look at this profile, and from a pure production standpoint, I feel like there's a little right-handed Dominic Canzone going on here. Maybe Mark Canna. I don't know. You got any thoughts on Smith?
Just that he's 19. So he's a little bit on the older side for the complex league, for a first year complex league guy. And yeah, I just want to see it. I think, typically speaking, I am much more willing to give the benefit of the doubt to guys who have played, multiple years of professional baseball. And Smith has what, 10 games, 8 games,
something like that.
Yeah. And the numbers are fine. They're totally fine, but they're not eye popping. No, I think Smith is a really, good prospect. And I think he'll probably be top 10 before too long, but I just want to see it a little bit. And I see a lot of good tools. I don't see any great tools from Aiden. So until I see like him apply the tools, I think there's a lot of 50s and 55s on him. Sure. But I got to see it before I get too carried away with him. And that's going to sound counterintuitive when you see some of the guys I have ahead of him, but you get the idea. I'm just not quite sure what to do with Aiden Smith quite yet, but I do like the player quite a bit.
Coming in at number 17 is outfielder Cade Marlowe, who of course has made his major league debut, 26 years old. You have him ranked 17th. I have him ranked 18th. And last time we did these rankings, he was 18th. So he hasn't moved at all, but obviously he's gotten off to a sensational start in his major league career. Slowing down a little bit lately, but nevertheless, what the Mariners have gotten from him so far is a major win for them. I've been so impressed with his ability to hit tough lefties like Framber Valdez and Andrew Chafin. But it's still fewer than 100 plate appearances so far. And like I said, we've started to see the cracks a little bit. We'll see how he adjusts back. But I still feel like right now he's probably a fourth outfielder at the end of the day. So that's why I didn't move him up my list. And I assume that's the same for you, right?
Yeah. The fact that he was able to come to the big leagues and cut down on the strikeouts is why he, I'm a little bit more willing to, consider Cade a part of the future. But we've seen him kind of start to regress here over his last handful of at bats. But he's got some speed, he's got some pop, he can play all three outfield spots. He looked better in center field than he did in left. When they got the chance to play there. So. I think he's a fourth outfielder. I feel pretty good about that. He's got some pop. I don't know if he's ever going to be a starter. Like, I don't think I would ever feel good about like Cade Marlowe getting 500 plate appearances for me.
Right.
But maybe like it's a non-zero chance that he can do that. But for now, it just, I think he's, some pop, take some walks, steal some bags, play some pretty good defense type of guy. And that's valuable. And he's major league ready right now, which certainly helps.
And then lastly, we're going to wrap things up here with Jeter Martinez, right-handed pitcher, recent international signing. He was down in the DSL this year, just wrapped up his season there. 17 years old. You have him 16th. I have him 17th. He just wrapped up a very impressive first year of pro ball. What do you like about him, Colby?
6'4", $180.
Mm-hmm.
Already throwing in the low to mid 90s, good slider, showing the ability to maybe work in a change up here. Like there's a good shot here that he's a legit 3-pitch mix guy who could in theory add 40 pounds of good weight to his frame. Like you said, the numbers are there, the production is there, the raw stuff is there, and he won't turn 18 until, next February. So there's a lot to like about if he was doing this in Modesto right now, he'd probably be top 10. Like it's just give him some time, let him go through the system normally. Don't rush him. Don't push him. He's 17 years old, but he really dominated, really did, this year in his first taste of pro ball. And there's a lot of reason to be really excited for him. I think the velo is going to go up as he puts on more weight. I think the slider is going to get sharpened. I think he's got a really high floor of a really good reliever, and he throws strikes already. He needs to polish up the command a little bit, but he throws plenty of strikes for his age. He's a good athlete. It just looks like the Mariners found another steal in international free agency, because I'd be pretty surprised, assuming he's here, if he's not, if Martinez isn't in the top, 10 when we do this list a year from now. Mm-hmm. Like, kid's legitimate. He's got good stuff. He's got room to grow, and he's a pitcher, and the Mariners, they're good at this. So, right. I think Jeter's got a legit shot, even though he's only 17. I feel pretty good about his chance to be a big league starter.
Yeah. Super excited to see him stateside, perhaps next year. That's going to do it for our show again. Tomorrow is going to be prospects 15 through 1. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Locked On Mariners podcast. For Colby Patnode, I'm Ty Gonzalez. Be sure to give us a follow on Twitter at LO_Mariners. You can follow me at Dane Gonzalez, that's CANEGNZLZ, and Colby at CPAT11, that's CPAT11. Follow us on Instagram and TikTok as well over at Locked On Mariners. That's one word, Locked On Mariners. You can also find all that stuff in the description of this episode. Thank you again for making us your first listen. Again, you can catch the Mariners and the Royals starting tomorrow night over the course of the weekend on the Mariners hometown broadcast with SiriusXM via the SXM app. Have yourself a beautiful baseball day, and we'll see you next time. Peace.